Thank you. Okay. Thank you all. So now we're going to have our panel discussion. Let's introduce our panel. We have Natalie Lindsey-Smith. Natalie is a senior paralegal practicing in the area of securities and finance at the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. She received her BA in paralegal studies from Notre Dame College in South Euclid and a master's in behavioral science and pastoral counseling from Liberty University of Lynchburg, Virginia. Natalie serves as a Lupus Foundation of America Greater Ohio chapter support group facilitator for the Greater Akron area and is a member of the board of directors for the Lupus Foundation. She also volunteers her time on the board of directors for Direction Home in the Akron County area. We also have Tanya Quiñones-Santiago. Since starting her journey with lupus in high school, Tanya Quiñones-Santiago has experienced a life filled with peaks and valleys. Through it all, she continues to persevere, eventually earning her doctorate in physical therapy in 2011. She currently works as a physical therapist at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation and serves as an adjunct professor at Cleveland State University in their DPT program. She also volunteers her time as a board member of the LFA-GOC. And we have former Senator Sandra Williams. Sandra Williams is a former Ohio State Senator with the U.S. and a U.S. Army Reserve veteran. Former Senator Williams earned a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Cleveland State University and her Master of Science degree in Criminal Justice Administration from Tiffany University. She has worked in criminal justice for over a decade, served as an elected official, and now works as Director of State and Government Affairs at Charter Communications. She has served in many voluntary roles, including the Federated Democratic Women of Ohio and the Black Women's Political Action Committee. She has been instrumental in the LFA-GOC and was the driving force behind our success during our funding from the Ohio Department of Health and the state budget. From a patient struggling to afford healthcare costs to a state senator advocating for funding, Sandra Williams is a pillar of the Lupus community in Ohio. Let's give them all a round of applause. A serious health problem can disrupt all aspects of life, whether it's a chronic or life-threatening illness such as lupus, a major health event such as a stroke, heart attack, or a debilitating injury. Many serious health problems seem to develop unexpectedly, upsetting life out of the blue. Patients may feel overwhelmed by waves of difficult emotions, from fear to worry to profound sadness, despair, and grief, or just numb, frozen by shock, and the feeling that they'll never be able to cope. The emotional upheaval can make it difficult to function or think straight, and even lead to mood disorders such as anxiety or depression. But whatever the diagnosis or emotional response, it's important to know that they're not powerless. There are steps they can take to better cope with their new situation. Ease the stress and mental anguish that often accompany serious illness, and find a way to navigate these challenges in your journey. What better way than to hear it firsthand from those that know how to have the moving on while living with a chronic illness such as this. In addition to all of the many accolades that these ladies have, these ladies all live and work with lupus. So they're going to answer some questions that we have and maybe some questions that you have about how they live with lupus. So this question is Tanya. Tanya, how much time will pass before I come to terms with a chronic illness? Before I can come to terms with my chronic illness? I think that's how you hope. Can you guys hear me? Is this on? Yes. Okay. But definitely, I think the sooner you do come to terms with the fact that you have a long-term illness, the easier it is going to be for you to live with it. Because when you can recognize the fact that this is something that I have to live with and deal with on a daily basis, and you integrate that into your life and not let it become part of your identity, and just let it become, something that you're living with, just like if maybe sprained your ankle or something like that, and you're living with having to walk with crutches for a while. You're just making some adjustments in your life, and once you realize that, you can make those adjustments so that you can live your life to the fullest extent to what you can do functionally for yourself and for to participate with the ones that you love. Thank you, Natalie. Learn about the future, how you'll cope, how you'll pay for treatment, what will happen to your loved one, the pain you may face as the illness progresses, or how life may change. How do you manage that?
Maybe that's a very deep question because we've all have asked those questions, whether we suffer from lupus ourselves or if there's a loved one who suffers from lupus. And there's a number of ways that you can look to manage the type of situations that come up when you are diagnosed with lupus. The main thing is to not say that lupus is you. You may have lupus, but lupus is not you. And you have to maintain who you are, your identity. That's the primary focus, I would say. And then once you, as Santiago has said, once you come to terms with the fact that you have lupus and your loved one has lupus, then you can kind of begin to think about what's most important to you and maintain those values or those activities to the extent that you can, given the degree of lupus that you have. You try to work that in to your daily routine. You don't try to too much change who you are and what you do to the extent that you can, but you try to modify it. You adjust, or as I often say, you pivot. You try to be agile with the disease that you have because you don't necessarily want to focus on the lupus, which is very easy to do. I mean, it is with you 24/7, but you also want to focus on the things that you can do and the things that you are still able to enjoy. And the journals are a perfect way to do that. And I know everyone received the journal today. And that's a tool that you can use to help you manage and deal with the day-to-day challenges of having lupus. And give one to your loved ones. You can make it an activity. You can make it a family activity. Do it together. And that helps them to have a better understanding of what it is that you deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Senator Williams, how do I avoid feeling powerless or hopeless or unable to look beyond the worst case scenario of my disease? How did you do that?
Well, I would say that taking care of yourself is really the best way that you can maintain your power. As long as you know that you have the ability to control certain things, certain outcomes by taking care of yourself, going to the doctor, exercising, and staying on top of the things you need to do well, then you maintain your power. And in those days where you feel a little tired, sleepy, and you're not feeling well, stand on top of the physicians that you go to on a regular basis to find out what's wrong is one way that I try to maintain my health. But I've never given in to lupus, and I never will. So I will fight this thing for the year.
Thank you. Fighting with you. And Tanya, did you ever feel a loss of yourself or that you were no longer you, but you were your medical condition? And if you did, how did you combat that?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at the age of 17. And so at that time, you feel like you're invincible, right? So it was a diagnosis. I took medicine. I went on my way. And then when symptoms started to arise, then I kind of felt, when I had some really serious health challenges, I felt as though, what I'm doing everything right. What is it that I'm not doing? And a lot of times, I don't know about everyone here, but I know I can put a lot of pressure on myself, which is a good thing and bad thing. It's good because that's how I've been able to accomplish a lot of the things that I've accomplished. But a lot of times, as a person living with lupus, you have to have compassion for yourself. And I had to learn that. And once I did, I learned how to make sure that I did what I needed to do for me. Because if I didn't take care of me first, then I wasn't going to be able to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. I wasn't going to be a huge goal setter. And I pride myself on reaching all of my goals. So if I have a goal, whether it's personal or professional, whether it's a family goal, I want to make sure that I'm able to reach that. And in order for me to do that, I make sure that I take care of myself, and do all the things, not just physically to take care of myself, but mentally to take care of myself. It's big in our household to feed our minds with positivity. The big goal in our house, to make sure we surround ourselves with positive people and ensure that, sometimes I love listening to positive podcasts, and one of my favorites are Mel Robbins, and one thing that she said that stuck out for me when I was struggling with relationships that maybe weren't serving me, and with me as someone living with lupus, was relationships are like a tree. Some relationships are the roots, and they'll be there forever, and they'll hold you up strong. And some relationships are like the leaves, and they might fall with the season, and they're there for a season, and then they go away. And after listening to that made me realize, it's okay for me to let some relationships go. Sometimes you outgrow relationships. Sometimes relationships don't serve you. And I think when you live with lupus, you have to be very mindful of what serves you, because that has a big impact on your life and what you're able to do.
Thank you. So I have a two-part question. For Senator Williams, what would you tell someone who's feeling powerless or hopeless, or maybe even in denial about even having lupus? Like, I don't have lupus. How do you discern not only the disease from being in denial, number one, and how do you empower yourself to persevere?
Well, I think it's been said here already that you are not lupus. You just have the disease. That's the first thing. But in order to take care of yourself, you have to make sure that you accept the fact that the doctor has diagnosed you with lupus and find out more about the disease. And once you understand what you have and how to control the disease to a certain extent, then you maintain your power. And you don't have to feel hopeless. See, I try to say, stay in the moment and don't worry about what could happen down the line. It has not happened to you, and hopefully it will never happen to you. If you read all of the stories that are out there about people who are, losing their limbs, and if you listen to the doctor, then they tell you you'll never have a baby, lupus can cause this, or you might lose your arm or your leg, and you might not be able to do anything. And that's when you start feeling hopeless, and that's when you start losing your power. So I said, stay in the moment. Um, Deal with life the way you have it right now. If you're walking right now, then walk right now, run right now, do everything that you want to do, and don't think about what could potentially happen, because you're just setting yourself up for disappointment down the line. And so you don't need to worry about that sort of thing. Just stay in the present. And when you're dealing with an issue, deal with the issue. Try to resolve it as much as possible. Do what the doctors tell you to do, and continue to live your life. That's how you maintain the time.
Thank you. Good answer. And this is to all of you. Did you lose any friends? Did you talk to them about your lupus? Did they understand? And did you? Were there people that you wanted to support you that didn't support you? How did you do it?
Well, for me, back in I believe it was 1998, when I started feeling sick, I didn't know what it was. And my best friend, Robin, we would just ride around. And at that time, I could barely write. I couldn't hold the pen. I could barely walk. And I was like, something's wrong with me. And she was like, you got to go to the doctor. And so that's one of the things a good friend will do. They will stick with you, stick with you. And so I didn't go to the doctor for a while, but my friend Robin kept saying, you need to go to the doctor. And when I went to the doctor said I had the flu. So I had the flu. That's what it was. They said, you have the flu. Just take all this medication. The flu never worked. The medication never worked. I went back to the doctor with Robin's encouragement, and they diagnosed me with something else. And then I went back again. But that was all with the encouragement of my friend Robin and my family. So real friends will stay with you regardless of what you're going through, and they will try to support you and encourage you to go to the doctor. And my friend Robin, my friend Dale, and all of the people that I have in my life, my family, they check on me on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, they check on me too much. Every morning they're checking on me to see if I took my medication, if I exercised, but they're looking out for me, and they want to go to the doctor with me because they want me to be well. I'm a part of their life, they're a part of my life, and those real friends, those real family members will never go anywhere. Now, I know people whose family members and friends have left them because they can't go outside, or they can't go to the club, or they can't go and do certain things, or they're always in the hospital. And so sometimes those people, well, she shouldn't have did this, or she shouldn't have done that. Maybe she wouldn't be in the hospital if she would have did this. So those are not the type of people that you want around you. Like the podcast that you said, sometimes you let some people go. If they're not for you, then you need to get them out of your life, because stress can spark up some type of, medical condition. So you get yourself from people who are not positive.
Yes, I lost friends who, no matter how I explained my disease, of course, they thought it was me. Don't say anything, but they obviously were not people I needed to keep in my life. So that was a good thing, but it was hurtful at the time. I was diagnosed in '94, and I was married, and my husband did not understand it. He didn't get it. For some people, if there's an issue and they don't know what to do, they need to fix it, don't know how to fix it, then they go to the other extreme. They don't want to deal with it. And unfortunately, that marriage ended, but and it was a toxic situation. So sometimes Lupus has a funny way of working. So it came up into my life, and it created a lot of havoc. Lost a lot of friends, family members acting strange. Marriage ended, but Lupus kind of helped me clean house a little bit. So while it was kind of rough at first, as the years went by and as I learned more and as I learned to live with it and not let it take control of me to the extent that I had anything to do with it, I made new friends, and I changed my circle of friends, changed jobs, found a job that was willing to be understanding and work with my illness. If I can't get to work at my regular time because my body is just not working with me that day, they don't give me a lot of grief or stress about it because they understand. If I say I need to take some time off because my body needs that, they understand. And so there, in the midst of all this craziness that is with us, there are waves of positivity. There are waves of blessings that come in the midst of it. So to my co-panelists' points that they have already made, look for the positive things, the things that don't serve you, let them go. Um, there are going to be times where you encounter people who just don't understand, and no matter how you explain it, no matter how you try to educate them, they don't want to understand. I remember Suzanne asked me to do a health fair, and I think Alika and I were working at health fair at one time, and we were trying to talk to people about lupus, and the reaction was real strange to me. They were like, I don't want to know nothing about it. Don't tell me. I don't want to know nothing about it. Like food that you do. I don't want to know anything about it. And that's strange to me because education is power. And the more that you know, the better it is for you and those who you love, people you encounter. You can be that better friend. You can be that better support. We know that, and it's funny, over time, you will find that there are a lot more lupus patients out there, or family members, or somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who has lupus. So, yeah, that you may lose some friends, but think about the people that you're clearing the way for real people, for real friends to come into your life to support you, to be that support like Sandra was saying that she has in her life. That's what you need. That's what you need. And don't be afraid to lose friends. It's really a part of life. It's a part of life. People that you knew in high school don't even talk about. So don't lupus may affect that, but it's just a part of life. You don't let that stop you. Don't let it get you down. Just shake that dust off. Keep right on going because there's that friend that gets you that's out there waiting to meet
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just like the other panelists and just like everybody in this room, we've all faced challenges with dealing with people, whether friends or family members. And what I have found, I was always that person when I was first diagnosed that, thought I had to hold on to everybody, right? And I couldn't let anybody go. And that's not necessarily the case. I think lupus has made me stronger. It's made me more of an advocate for myself, not just medically speaking, but personally to say, you know what, that's not okay. It's almost made me feel like I have more power almost than I would have if I didn't have lupus in a strange way. Because now because I know certain things affect me and can cause a flare up, I steer clear of that. And so if someone's attitude is going to affect me, then they have to go. Where before I would hold on to that and allow people to treat me however they wanted to. And that's not just friends, that was family members as well. And that, I would say, for me, that was the hardest part, is realizing even though you love them and they love you and you'll always have a love for them, having them in some people, not everybody, but having certain people in your life with certain attitudes or viewpoints is actually more toxic for you. And so, you have to make sure that you surround yourself. You have to with the most positive people, even if that's only 5 people. If your circle is 5 people, but those 5 people are just a force of nature of support for you, that's way better than having 25 people that aren't a force of nature for you. And I just make sure you have gratitude for those people that are in your corner and support you no matter what. In my journey, my husband and I have had to find most of, we always say we get to choose our family members because of some of the toxicity. And I mean, I find this a lot especially in the Hispanic community, but a lot in minority culture. There's different, they make you feel like you have to accept certain things because it's familia, it's your family, and things that you wouldn't accept from people that aren't family. It's just because they're family doesn't mean you have to accept that. So we definitely embrace the fact and grown to love the fact that now we have a great opportunity to pick who our family members are and hold them close because they've been rocks for us and they've been in our corner the whole time.
Thank you. You ladies have answered so many questions all rolled into one. So I'm sorry, Tanya, you're very accomplished. How do you do it?
Like I said earlier, I've always been driven. I've always felt, I've always felt like I've had to prove something. And then once I got diagnosed with lupus, I was barely about to graduate high school. So I really felt like, you know what, I have this. I'm still going to meet my goals of, becoming a doctor and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just making sure again that I had a goal, a specific goal, and I put myself in the best position to achieve that goal, whether it was the people who surrounded me, whether it was if I knew I had an exam the next day, I had to go to bed earlier than the average college student that might be out, till 2 a.m. I couldn't do some of those things and I accepted that, and that helped push me further. And like I said in the previous question, I feel like lupus has actually made me stronger. As far as my will, my self-determination is concerned. And it's forced me to focus more on my mindset and shift my mindset. And I think if you can change your mindset and have a mindset of, I always say I live with lupus. I never say I'm a patient. I have lupus. Because when I say that I live with lupus, then lupus doesn't define who I am. It's just part of my day. It's just part of what I need something I have to adjust within my actions so that I can achieve the things I want to achieve. I feel like when I say it in another context, my brain interprets it differently. So saying I live with lupus allows me to say, yeah, I have that, but it doesn't define who I am, and it's not going to limit what I'm capable of doing.
Natalie, you mentioned that your employer was very supportive of your disease and challenges that come with it. How did you tell your employer that you had a disease, and where did you go?
Well, right out the gate, I told him. When I came in for the interview, after we got through all the preliminaries, maybe for 2 hours. But I was upfront about it because I knew I was going to have some bad days. And I needed to know if this was going to be a problem for me, because if it was going to be a problem for them, it wasn't going to be a good fit for me. I've had jobs where it was torture. They expected me to work work on the weekend. It just wasn't serving me physically or mentally. And so I learned over time. Ask the question. They're asking you a lot of questions. They're checking you out to see if you're a fit. It's just as important to find out if they're a fit or not. And just to be upfront. Now, does it always work? But it's better to find out right out the gate at the very beginning than not saying anything. Now, it's a way in which you say it. You give them every confidence that this, the reason why they're interviewing you in the first place is obvious that you're qualified for the job. It's just that there may be challenges with the health. And is that going to be a problem? And either it is or it's not. And it's better to know, as I said, up front. And then that's less stress that you have. Now you don't feel like you can't be your authentic self. You don't feel like you're an imposter or you're hiding anything. You can go about the day to day and mindset. You can just be who you are. Not that you are Lupus, but it's just Lupus is just a part of your life. You have to deal with it. It's the best policy is just to be upfront. Just have it in your mind how it is that you're going to approach it and what it is you're going to say about it. All the while saying, I'm qualified, I can do this. It's just, there's just going to be some days that you're just going to have some time.
Experience that myself. There are employers that care and there are people that don't. So there's a lot of cliches like everything's gonna be all right. Everything happens for a reason. But those cliches aren't helpful. In fact, they can be infuriating. Anyway, what do you say? How do you react?
Just say thank you. Because, people will say, oh, it's going to be okay. I knew somebody that had this, and this is what happened. Thank you for the information, and I'll take it with a grain of salt. Again, I don't want to turn anybody off. People are trying to be nice and courteous to you, and so you just listen to them and let them get their point across because they're probably trying to be helpful to you, and just move on. That's the best way to do it.
What do I say to people that are not okay with me?
What do you mean by not okay with you?
Now, I'm okay. What do I do with things people say that I'm not okay with?
Oh,
I'm
okay.
reading questions. I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
didn't memorize.
I got
I'm
you.
sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I'm answering the right question. So just repeat that for me one more time. Sorry.
What do I say when people say things that are not okay with me?
Oh, I mean, you're going to encounter, even if you didn't have lupus, you're going to encounter that all the time. I mean, that's just a way of life. And I think, to Sandra's point, take it with a grain of salt. If you let everything affect you, and it's gonna literally, for us in this room, affect us physically. So if you take everything to heart that people say, and a lot of times people just don't know what to say. So they're saying these things because they think they're being sensitive or helpful or whatever it might be. It doesn't come off that way. Not to us, right? But they think they're being helpful, and usually, more often than not, it's because they really don't know what to say, and they want to say something, but sometimes it's better to just say nothing. However, when I do come across that, obviously when I was younger, I would take a lot of that stuff to heart. As I've grown and matured, I've just learned to kind of just let those people slide and just say, okay, or that's your opinion. I've learned not to debate with them. That used to be a thing when I was younger. If someone said, "Oh, well, this is my interpretation of lupus," and then I give them a fact, and then they would say something that maybe they Googled and it really has no facts, and it might be a back and forth thing. And then I thought, why am I wasting my energy on this conversation that's going to go nowhere, and this person that really has no real influence on my life? So I do definitely agree with Sandra on the fact that just kind of keep it moving. And you'll probably hear stuff from even people you love that isn't the best. But you just, in those cases where it's a relationship that I truly value, usually I know that they didn't mean it in that way. And then I try to find a time where I can say, hey, what did you really mean by that? Because this is how it came across. And usually they don't really have to come across that way. So in those relationships that are really close to you, be sure to be communicating how you're feeling and what you're dealing with, because they're not mind readers either. And when you're in relationships, you're not the only one living with lupus. They have to live with lupus too. They're dealing with it in their own way.
Natalie, did you ever feel angry or frustrated at all the challenges that your disease has thrown at you? Or feel like, why me? Or feel like, in addition to the normal things that we go through, did you feel like, why me? Would you like, why?
Oh, absolutely. In 1994, my children were still small. And at that time, doctors felt free to say to you, once they tell you that you have lupus, that you have 5 years to live. The natural question was, yes, why me? I'm doing all the healthy things, I'm doing all the right things, I'm exercising, I'm eating right, I'm getting the rest that I should be getting. When you start searching for, well, now let me see, now you start going through the family tree trying to see who you can blame there.
They don't.
But yeah, I was angry. At first, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to get a second, third, or fourth opinion. And then when it settles in, yeah, you're angry. You're angry because now all of a sudden you don't have a life that you're angry because you can't work out 3 days a week like a maniac, like you used to do. Club is not an option anymore. A lot of things you want to do, like lay out in the sun, get that good old vitamin D. You can't do all that stuff. So you're angry. You're angry that your life is not what it once was, and you begin to grieve that loss of the life that you would have or no longer have. So yeah, I was angry. I was mad. I was hurting. I was all those things. And it's like, what the bigger question is, what do I do with this anger that I'm feeling? I can't take it out on the people around me because now they're scared. They don't know. My mind went to, am I going to be able to see my kids grow up? Because they were, as I said, they were still young. How is this going to affect my marriage? All these things were like racing through my mind. So I was angry. I was angry that I said, now I got to deal with this. I got to figure out how to do this. My job is stressful enough as it is. Now I got this. So yeah, I was angry. I was really angry for a while. I was angry that I had it. I was angry that people didn't understand what it was and the fact that I had it. I was angry that people were saying all kind of crazy things to me. All these crazy stories, right? That they were telling me. I was angry about all of that. So over time, you learn how to overcome it, become stronger through it. But yeah, initially I was walking around with that anger all the time.
Did your faith play a part in whether they got anger?
It did. It did. I do not believe that I would have been able to work through all of that, but for my faith. And that's another layer, trying to explain to your faith family that you have this disease. Because, yeah, you pray a lot, and prayer changes things, and prayer helps you to endure. But initially, sometimes you don't hear it. I'm just being honest. You don't want to hear that because those questions pop in mind. If God is who He says He is, why did He allow this to happen? You begin to question your faith. But if you dig a little deeper and your relationship is what it is, then those questions will soon resolve themselves. And it gives you a different perspective, and it just makes you think deeper.
Absolutely. For me, I have never been angry about the disease. I just wanted to understand it. And I look at it like this. I'm living with lupus, but it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. And if you go outside right now, you'll see people who are barely living. You see people who are much sicker than you. People who are having a hard time. And when you think about your life, and you think about all the things that you have, yes, you are living with lupus. You know you have lupus. You know the things that you need to do to try to control it. But if you sit there and you think about it and you get angrier and angrier, me, I don't have time for that because there are too many things in this world that we have to do. We have to live. We have to take care of ourselves. If you like going on vacation, if you like sightseeing, taking pictures, if you sit around and you think about it, then you're just going to get angrier and angrier to the point that nobody wants to be around you. So you know you have it, okay, but you're still blessed. And that's the way I look at it. I look at my mother right now, she has arthritis all throughout her body. That could be me, but right now it's not. And so my sister, she had brain cancer and she had not brain cancer, but breast cancer. So she has all of these things to think about. I was taking care of her when I was sick, and my other sister, my niece, and my mother. So all these people who are dealing with so much, I try not to feel sorry for myself. I just try to keep moving because you are the only person that can take care of you. You have to be prepared to take care of yourself by anyone. So put the anger aside and just be happy. That's all.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open up the floor up for questions, if that's okay with the panel. Do you mind? If you have a question, just are you going to say that? Okay. If you have a question, just stand up and say your question as loud as you can.
Can I add to that? I have a good friend who's always like saying, all the doctors want to do is just give you all that medication. You shouldn't take that. Take this aloe vera juice, or take this, or take that. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And I continue to take my medication. Now, if you want to go ahead and mix the aloe vera juice and it's going to sleep with it, that's what you go right ahead and do that. But I am not going to stop taking my medication because this medication has worked for me since the 1990s, and I'm satisfied with it. Now, if that's not working, you always come up with something like, hey, I read about this. I forget what that green stuff is, that powdery stuff, and here's take some of this. That stuff might be helpful with micro something like that. So yeah, take the medication and you want to try it. take some time to work out more, whatever. As long as it's not like follow, as he's saying, follow up.
Yeah, I'll add to that real quick, just because I am kind of more on a natural approach for my own health. However, that works for me. And I see a functional medicine doctor who went to medical school, does all sorts of blood work, and interacts with my medical team. So I have multiple specialists and they speak to each other. And I think that's very important. If you have more than one doctor, that your doctors speak to each other so that they know if what each one is doing, so that they can ensure that there's nothing that's going to interact. But I would suggest that if you are looking for a more holistic approach, that you would work with a functional medicine doctor who can work with your doctor, but maybe looks at things like diet, things that are actually scientifically proven to help with certain things. It's not going to cure anything, but maybe it can help change, maybe lower dosage here, or for me, changing my diet helped significantly with controlling inflammation and all of that kind of stuff. But again, just like Suzanne said, that was done under the care of healthcare providers that were medically trained professionals to prescribe that type of a plan of care.
And you first have to actually do what the doctor told you to do before you decide, oh, this isn't work for me. You can't just go off of what your cousin did or what your neighbor did. You have to see what works for you. And then go back to, you have to communicate with the doctor and say, hey, I tried this pill and I've been taking it for 3 months and it did this and that for me. And that's where your journaling must come into play.
And lastly, just remember, everybody's lupus is different. So not everybody's lupus is the same. So what works for me might not work for you, might not work for Suzanne. What works for Suzanne might not work for me. Everybody's lupus is extremely individualized. So even if someone with lupus is telling you, oh, get off of that and take this or whatever, still, it's always good to hear other people's experiences, but still have that conversation with your doctor.
Thank you.
I will say I've been blessed to have good health insurance. However, I will also say my health has took my family to a point where we've almost lost everything. Not just me almost losing me, but trying to keep me alive almost lost everything. And at that point, we realized how important our medical team was to me and my family, and researching and finding people that fit for you just because they fit, just like with whatever treatment you're taking, just because one doctor is a fit for someone, they might not be a fit for you and your personality. And so for us, we place health as a priority. So I would rather spend more money on a doctor that's going to work for me than go to a movie or something like that, because in the end, the return on the investment is great. You know what I mean? But still, in saying that, it is challenging to keep up with the co-pays and all of that. I know there are a lot of programs out there for people in terms of helping with cost of co-pays, cost of prescription drugs. So those are things you can research and kind of look into. The Lupus Foundation Greater Ohio chapter has a lot of resources to help navigate situations like that in terms of helping you know where to look if you don't know where to look. Their website is amazing. They revamped it, so take a look at that. Suzanne's team is great. Everybody here is great, and they're here to help, especially if you're new to this journey, help you navigate this journey. So take advantage of everything that the Lupus Foundation and Greater Ohio chapter has to offer, because there's no better resource if you're living in this state than this chapter.
Sorry.
I just wanted to add, sometimes it takes a conversation with your doctor. You may not need, the generic may work. The generic works as well, but the cost is less. Find out if there's some coupons. Sometimes they have coupons for certain medications that'll further take away some of the cost. So sometimes it's a conversation that, hey, this is expensive. What else can you prescribe that may not be one as expensive and works as well? Is there generic or does the pharma, the manufacturer of the medication, do they have coupons that can further persuade from that? And sometimes good RX works too.
And I'll just say, I told you all what happened when I was first going through the journey of finding out that I had lupus, and they kept telling me I had this, I had that, and I kept going back to the doctor, and I kept saying, this medication is not working. Can you prescribe something else, or can you test me for everything? And the first thing the doctor said was, your insurance won't cover it because we have to go through all of these steps first before we can test you for this. And so I said, well, listen, test me for everything and just, I'll pay for it. Okay. Now, I didn't have any money, mind you. I had no money, but I figured I could pay them when I do, right? So they tested me, and luckily they found out what it was. But this is the thing. Our health is more important. And if we're not able to take care of ourselves, then we're going to be a burden to somebody else. So a payment plan is always good. If your income is such that you may qualify for Medicaid, since the state of Ohio has passed the law to allow everybody to be able to get Medicaid if their income qualifies. But also, these hospitals have payment plans. And so get on a payment plan, give them $10, $20, whatever the case may be. They try to turn you away from the hospital. They are not supposed to be doing that. So you have to fight that. You have to fight it every turn. But get the medical care that you need, and even $10, $20 a month based on what you need.
I'd like to add to that two things. One is you have to be your own advocate. I've even using a healthcare provider, I've had to learn that the hard way. You have to make sure that you're advocating for yourself, because nobody else will. If you're not taking control over, your own healthcare and what's working for you and what's not. That your health, like Sandra said, has to be your top priority, because if it goes downhill, then you won't be able to pay for anything, let alone healthcare costs, right? But also working in numerous hospitals like I have, aside from payment plans, if your income's a certain level, or if you've had so much medical hardship, every hospital, they don't advertise it, but every hospital has a hardship fund so that you can apply. And I've had many patients that I've recommended that to that have had surgeries or what have you, and they've applied and it's been covered. They cover it. They look at it's an interview process, and they ask you all about your finances, how much you pay for your mortgage or your rent, your car, your insurance, your on average, how much do you pay for utilities and this and that, and then kind of go ahead. So you might not even have to have a low income. It could just be that your income and your expenses are to an extent that it's going to be a financial burden for you to pay that hospital stay. And then a hospital many times can wipe that out for you. So that is also an option if you're finding yourself in a situation that you've been hospitalized or you have a huge bill that even with insurance is still a lot of out-of-pocket expense. There are many programs with every single hospital. Again, it's not advertised, but you call them up and you let them know, and you'll find they will work with you.
And you can find a lot of that information on the back of your bill. It's real small print. It's back there, and that program is through the federal government. They get a lot of money from the federal government and the state, and so in order for them to keep getting all this money, they have to help people who cannot afford their bill. So I cannot figure out why I can't think of it, but look at the back of the bill. I helped a lot of people who couldn't even met the bill. I was like,
Very, and it's even not only is it small, but the font is not in black.
Yeah.
It's usually in gray.
Yes, in gray.
Yeah. But it is true. It's on there, and it's true. They do get funding, and that money has to be used, or else they won't get funding again. And so there's a lot of stuff to help you out. Yeah. And again, Lupus Foundation can help you navigate that if you do need help.
One last question. I just want to say one thing. All new Lupus patients, there's a lady who has on a black suit and a pinkish top. If you're a new Lupus patient, stop and see our patient navigator, Rita. She needs to talk to you. Your last question.
And
Thank you all. Thank
this is
you.
nice. Thank you guys for being here.
I need to add something. Does this even work?
I don't think they work. I don't think they work.
Well, for you, it's working.
No, I couldn't hear.
We are hopeful. Part of the role of the Lupus Foundation is to advocate for these issues. Okay, and at the national level and at the local level, we are constantly working with our legislators because medical care in this country is a huge mess. Right. So once you know you're not alone. If you don't have insurance, you're not alone. If you have these struggles, we know you're not alone. And there's more and more groups like this that are rising to try to help remove barriers to care. So if you can't get to the doctor, that's a barrier to care. If you can't afford your medicine, that's a barrier to care. You can call us and we would try to work with the pharmaceutical company or maybe help navigate you because most people don't understand the resources they have. So all is not lost. One of the challenges is constantly going back and forth to the doctor and losing work to do so. It is a challenge. And usually you don't have one doctor, you got 4 and 5. This part of your journey will come to an end. It's not going to be as frequent. All right. So I promise you, it will get better. So, but on behalf, I can't even stand in your shadow here. I can't believe I still learned the tree. I love it. I love to think about the tree with you. With the tree, man, a lot of leaves are falling from my tree this week. I'm going to say that much. But we are very grateful for your presence, for all you do, especially Senator Williams. I don't know if you know this. She rose when she was senator. Actually, I think she might have been state representative at the time, where she got us a line item in the state budget. And they actually gave it to someone else. She went in there fighting like
big
I want
warrior.
my lupus money.
She wanted her money. I wanted them to have it, and they gave it to someone else. But we worked through it. We formed a partnership, and I don't know if the senator knows this, but I testified at the finance committee like 2 weeks ago, and on both sides of the aisle, they offered to raise the dollars because we did such a great job, and we were so grateful because we wouldn't be here through COVID without those funds. So from the bottom of my heart and everybody else, I say thank you. Okay. We